A month ago, I debuted the new Mongoose Ledge X1, a bike so impressive to me that I turned it into the fastest cycle KevCentral project bike I think I've done. Stage 1 to Stage 2, I already have Stage 3 completed, and it's beyond any project bike I've ever done before. And that's coming soon, very soon, but it's not just me that's been busy. Mongoose has been at it too, because today you're getting your first look at the newest iteration of the Ledge, the Mongoose Ledge X2. The X2 takes everything good from the X1 and steps it up in a big way, and I'm not just talking about the new big wheels, because there are lots of small components that make this a massively big deal. Let me pause here for just a second to say if you haven't seen my videos on the Ledge X1, you may want to pause and go check those out and then come back, because there are going to be lots of comparisons between the two bikes. For instance, I will get started with one, like that the X2 has the same lock-on grips as the X1. And the same steel handlebars, 720mm wide and 31.8mm diameter. However, this oversized label is not a sticker like it was on the X1. This is painted on, which we'll factor in more in just a moment. Brakes on the X2, also mechanical discs, but the front rotor upgraded to 180mm. The shifter, a trigger shifter, ProRush branded, and as you can see, one extra speed, 8, up from the X1 7. The stem, alloy but longer than the X1 stem, which is curious, but this is undeniably longer. I'm assuming it's a better fit for the 29er geometry. We'll find out more about that later. These three new Mongoose bikes, like the new Schwinn bikes, have this excellent tapered head tube, adapted of course for the straight steerer factory fork. And this fork, another slight upgrade over the X1. This has dual preload adjusters, 100mm of travel, and all the grease. It's also reinforced better. Never undervalue the strength of a good arch. This fork has significantly less flex than its little brothers. It's branded Element, but very much like the Schwinn Axums fork. Its dropouts grab onto the front quick release, and those wheels 29 inches. Double wall alloy, Element branded wide rims like the X1's rims. These can accommodate 29 by 2.25 up to 2.6 tires. The size it ships with, 2.25. Looking at the drivetrain, another small upgrade, alloy pedals over the X1's polymer, and this 170mm Pro Wheel crankset. The last video I uploaded before this one featured a 175mm version of this exact same crankset, and that was on a $780 bike from the local bike shop. So if you're wondering how well our Walmart bikes are starting to be equipped, this alone says volumes. At the rear, the X2 gets a ProRush derailleur, just like the X1, except this one, of course, works through 8 speeds. The ProRush brings a clutch to budget derailleurs, which is a big deal, but full disclosure, this one has been beat up by UPS. I had to somewhat bend the cage back into shape, and it's been partially de-riveted, and you'll see the function of that in just a moment. But we know a ProRush works, so nothing to prove there. But first, I want to look at this rear wheel to the other side, because this wheel is a quick release. The quick release piggybacks another big feature of these new wheels, the fact that this 8-speed is a cassette. I repeat, a cassette, not a freewheel. Two big features for the X2 on top of the big 29-inch wheels, which makes it big features. Bonuses to the full suspension that carries over from the X1 that was already great, meaning it has the 850 pounds per inch, 165mm eye-to-eye coil shock, and this alloy pivot system with actual bearings in the pivots, not bushings. As far as I know, a first for big box full suspension bikes. Mongoose even updated the saddle for the X2, meaning more padding and I believe ever so slightly wider at the back. The seat, though, sits on the same easily adjustable alloy seat post, 27.2mm diameter, using the same 31.8mm seat post clamp. Sometimes I get ridiculed because I leave some of the unnecessary labeling and warning stickers on these bikes. In this case, one comes partially pre-removed. I'm talking about stickers because remember earlier when I mentioned that the handlebar graphic was painted on where it was a sticker on the X1? All of the X2's graphics are either painted or screened or clear-coated over. They're not removable. I actually like this because to me it shows they spent a little more time working on the frame. And this frame is 17-inch like the X1's, But it's not just an X1 fit with 29-inch wheels. The X2 frame, while very close to the X1, it does have its own specs. Specs that I will be giving a full rundown within a day or two of this video being released, so make sure you are subscribed. And that you have the notification bell active so you get notified the second that video comes out. This bike a step up component wise, but it's not just an upgraded X1. It's one thing to put some components together and make a bike, it's another to have them adjustable and work well together. Like this rear shock, it can be adjusted, it has a small amount of adjustment, but the adjustment does work, and that balances well with the front fork suspension. And working together with the rider in riding position, the workload is balanced. The Pro Rush, I know from my past that these work, but mine, with its UPS adjustment thing, is good for about 3 speeds, which on this 109-degree heat index day, made for an effort-inducing ride. Still though, I can pleasantly report that the X2's 29-inch platform doesn't have that big truck sitting over the wheel 29er feel. Now I can tell this is not a 27.5, but I'm also not averse to riding this. The suspension system, there is less fork flex than on the X1, so that's good, but overall very close. That's not to say this fork doesn't bottom out, because it does, but it also takes some punishment off the rider, which is good. And for a budget bike, this rear and the front suspension do work together admirably well. And aside from the components that I know are hiding under the hood, there is extra rollover clearance from these 29-inch wheels, and that equals less pedal strikes over humps. So if you're wondering what the difference is, components aside, if you've been lucky enough to have an experience on the 27.5 X1, this 29-inch X2 would feel very familiar. Those new components though, they make the X2 more out of the box, adaptable, and give people like me an easier and more affordable upgrade path. Let's spend a moment and think about what this X2 gives us, big box bike shoppers, the advantages. Quick release wheels, front and rear. An alloy full suspension frame with a tapered head tube and internal cable routing. A threadless headset that 3 years ago was a rare sight on a Walmart bike. Now we have that, and wide 31.8mm bars, lock-on grips, and trigger shifters. And the same crankset, we're going to be stacking up these ands, the same crankset that's on a local bike shop bike that's hundreds of dollars more expensive. Then there's the pivot system with actual bearings, further eroding the increasingly flimsy arguments that you have to have an expensive bike. Even the fork, while still definitely big box caliber, I've seen forks on more expensive bikes that don't have any less flex. Plus, thanks to the tapered head tube, if I want to change that fork, I can do so with a tapered fork. Want wider tires in the future? Up to 2.60 accommodated by these rims. And of course, a full suspension bike with all that stuff and a rear wheel with a quick release and a cassette. Game changer material. Not to mention that this Goose has proper provisions for an internally routed dropper post cable. Out of the box. Now don't think from all this that I'm discounting the X1 because it is a great bike and I personally prefer 27.5. But this X2 definitely steps up what we know is a big box bike to an entirely new level. And no doubt another record-setting sellout. I don't think I've mentioned the weight yet, it's 39.2 pounds. And as of the time of me making this video, I don't know the exact selling price, I'll put that in the title. I did see an estimated price back in April, and if that holds true, it's going to be very, very fairly priced considering what this bike brings to the table. And there's a look at the new Ledge X2. Check back for the full specs rundown because that'll be coming in the next couple of days. For now though, comment with your thoughts on this new bike. And thanks for watching KevCentral. Have a great day.